Saturday mornings have always been my quiet refuge. Sunlight streaming through the curtains, the hum of the kettle in the kitchen, the smell of fresh laundry soft in the air. Ethan was out for his morning run, and I was doing what I always do. Tidying up, folding his clothes, pretending order could somehow keep everything in our lives intact. I remember smiling when I picked up his pants from the chair, thinking how absent-minded he was about leaving things lying around. Then his wallet slipped out and hit the floor with a soft thud. At first, I didn't think twice. I bent down, picked it up, brushed off the dust. But when I went to place it on the dresser, I noticed it felt heavier than usual, oddly bulky, like it was keeping a secret. I hesitated, the way you do when curiosity whispers louder than reason. My thumb slid over the worn leather before I opened it, just to clear out the old receipts and random business cards he never threw away. That's when I saw it. A small folded paper, crinkled from being tucked in too long. A motel receipt, room 204, paid in cash, dated 3 nights ago. The same night he said he was working late, fighting deadlines and fluorescent lights at the office. My heart didn't break right away. It paused. It just stopped moving for a second. Then the realization crept in, slow and sharp, like ice melting down my spine. I remember whispering to myself, "No, it can't be." But there it was, black ink on thin paper, proof that my husband, the man who kissed my forehead every morning, had spent the night somewhere I didn't exist. Room 204, signed E. Harris. He didn't even bother to use a fake name. My hands trembled so hard that the paper rustled like dry leaves in the wind. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at it, hoping it would somehow turn into something else if I looked long enough. My throat tightened, that heavy ache you feel right before tears, but none came. Instead, there was this strange calm, the kind that shows up right before a storm. I put everything back exactly where I found it, aligning the corners of each bill, the driver's license, the cards. My fingers moved carefully, almost lovingly, as if I were preserving evidence from a crime scene. Maybe, in a way, I was. Then I took my phone and snapped a quick photo, my pulse loud in my ears. The click of the camera felt like a small act of rebellion, quiet, deliberate, powerful. If he could lie so easily about one night, what else had he hidden behind that easy smile and charming laugh? I slipped the wallet back into his pants pocket, every motion rehearsed, mechanical. When I looked at my reflection in the mirror afterward, I barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked calm, but she wasn't. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the sunlight dancing across the floor, pretending everything was normal. I could still hear Ethan's voice in my head from 3 nights ago, tired, rushed, apologetic. "Don't wait up, honey. It's gonna be a long night." I believed him. God, I wanted to believe him. Now those same words echoed like a cruel joke, a line rehearsed for someone who trusted too much. The air in the room felt heavier, almost thick with something unspoken. I told myself to breathe, to think clearly. Panic wouldn't help me. Precision would. So I tucked my phone away, straightened the bedspread, and went back to folding laundry as if nothing had happened. But inside, something had shifted. Quietly, irreversibly. A door had opened in my mind, and behind it was a version of me I didn't know existed. Observant, patient, and suddenly, very awake. As I carried the laundry basket downstairs, I caught a glimpse of our wedding photo on the wall. His smile looked so genuine then, mine too. I paused for just a second before walking past it, my hand brushing the frame lightly. If only that woman in the picture knew what I knew now. But she will. Soon enough. That evening, I heard the familiar sound of Ethan's car pulling into the driveway, the crunch of tires on gravel, the soft slam of the door. I stood in the kitchen, pretending to scroll through my phone, my reflection faint in the window above the sink. When he walked in, carrying takeout and that same easy grin, I almost admired how effortlessly he played the part. "Hey, babe. Long day. Thought I'd bring your favorite, Thai curry," he said, setting the bag on the counter like nothing in the world was wrong. I smiled, or something close to it. "That's sweet. Long week for you too, huh? My voice came out steady, almost light. Inside, I was watching him like a stranger, noticing the smallest details, the way he loosened his tie, the faint cologne that wasn't quite familiar, the confidence of a man who thought his secrets were safe. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. You have no idea. That project on Wednesday nearly killed me. And there it was, Wednesday. The same night on the receipt. My heart sank, but I kept my face calm, polite, practiced. Wednesday? Right. You said you worked late that night, I murmured, pretending to serve the food. He nodded, completely unaware of the silent explosion taking place 2 feet away. Yeah, didn't even have time to call you. Sorry, hun. He said it so casually, so smoothly, that I almost believed him again. Almost. I watched him eat, the way he always did, relaxed, chatting about deadlines and co-workers, completely unaware that every word out of his mouth was feeding my quiet rage. He laughed about some inside joke from the office, and I smiled in all the right places, nodding like the dutiful wife I used to be. But inside, I was cataloging everything. The tone, the rhythm of his voice, the comfort he felt while lying to me. It was astonishing, really, how calm he looked while rewriting our life in real time. Did you talk to your mom today? He asked between bites, like nothing was different. My fork paused mid-air. Not yet, I said softly. But I will. My words came out smooth, but there was something new underneath them. Control. He didn't notice, or maybe he didn't want to. He kept talking, oblivious, while my mind ran through that motel receipt over and over again like a haunting song I couldn't turn off. When dinner was done, I quietly gathered the plates, my movements deliberate, steady. He offered to help, and I shook my head, smiling. You've done enough this week, I said, and for the first time, I meant it differently. As he leaned back on the couch, flipping through channels, I slipped into the hallway, opened my hidden photo folder, and sent the picture of that receipt to a private album labeled Only Evidence. It wasn't revenge yet, not even close. But it was a start. After the dishes were done, I stood in the doorway, watching him from behind. He looked so normal, relaxed, content, like a man who believed the world was still spinning exactly his way. The TV flickered across his face, lighting up his smile every few seconds. That smile used to make me feel safe. Now it made me feel like a fool. I wondered how many times I'd mistaken deceit for charm, silence for loyalty. The thought burned, but not in the way I expected. It didn't break me. It steadied me. I went upstairs quietly, the creak of the steps almost rhythmic, like a countdown. In the bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, my phone glowing softly in the dark. I opened the photo of the receipt again, room 204, and stared at it until the image blurred. My reflection in the screen looked colder this time, sharper. That's when I realized something had shifted inside me. I wasn't just the betrayed wife anymore. I was the one collecting proof, step by step, breath by breath. As I slipped under the covers later, I turned to face the empty space beside me. He'd fallen asleep on the couch downstairs, as usual. I closed my eyes, my heart strangely calm, a quiet voice whispering inside my head. You think I'll cry when I find out, Ethan. You have no idea who I really am. The next few days felt like walking through fog, familiar but slightly distorted, as if every object in my home had a secret I hadn't noticed before. I still smiled at Ethan, still packed his lunches, still kissed his cheek before he left for work. But behind every gesture was calculation. Every move, every question, every look had purpose now. I wasn't his wife anymore. I was his quiet observer, and he, unknowingly, had become my favorite case study. Each morning, after he left, I'd sit at the kitchen table with my coffee and start digging. His credit card statements, his travel logs, even those vague team dinners he was so proud of mentioning, everything lined up a little too perfectly. Too clean, too curated. It was like he'd rehearsed an alibi before he even needed one. I kept notes in a small black notebook, coded just enough to keep it unreadable to anyone else. Secrets deserve their own language. Still, I found nothing solid. No second charges, no duplicate hotel bookings. He was careful, almost professional. But then one afternoon, while scrolling through his phone bill, a pattern appeared. A number he called frequently, sometimes twice in a day. Saved under a name that meant nothing. Plumbing Co. I remember smiling when I saw it. Ethan had never fixed so much as a leaking faucet in his life. The next morning, after Ethan left for work, I dialed the number labeled Plumbing Co. My heart was steady, my voice calm, even as something deep inside me braced for impact. On the third ring, a woman answered. "Hello?" Her tone was light, distracted, not the voice of someone who scheduled maintenance. "Hi," I said, keeping my tone polite, almost casual. "I'm calling about a repair appointment." There was a pause. Then a nervous laugh. You've got the wrong number." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, her voice still echoing in my mind. There was hesitation in it, not confusion, but fear. And that was all I needed. I smiled, not out of joy, but clarity. Ethan had been sloppy enough to leave traces, and that meant I could follow them. For the first time in days, I felt something close to power. Quiet, controlled, deliberate. It hummed beneath my skin like electricity. That night, I played my part again. Dinner, small talk, laughter in all the right places. Ethan kissed my forehead before bed, thanked me for being so understanding. When he drifted off to sleep, I reached for his phone, unlocked it, and opened the hidden folder I'd suspected for days. And there she was, the same woman whose voice I'd heard that morning, smiling in a photo she probably thought no one else would ever see. For a long moment, I just stared at her picture. She looked young, younger than me at least, with that careless confidence women have when they think they're special. Her lipstick was still smudged in the corner of the frame, her smile too intimate to mistake for friendship. I studied every detail, memorizing the curve of her cheek, the necklace she wore, the faint reflection of Ethan's shirt button in the glass behind her. Proof. Undeniable, cruel proof. My first instinct was to wake him up, to throw the phone at his chest and scream until my voice broke. But that version of me, the one who reacted, who begged for answers, she was gone. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of seeing my pain. Instead, I locked his phone, placed it gently back on the nightstand, and lay down beside him, my heart pounding in quiet rhythm. The room smelled faintly of his cologne, the same one that lingered in that woman's photo. As the night stretched on, I stared at the ceiling, my mind wide awake. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was focused. He thought he'd fooled me, that I'd go on smiling while he built his second life in secret. But he didn't just cheat. He underestimated me. And that, I realized, would be his biggest mistake. By Friday, my plan was ready. I'd stopped shaking when I thought about the receipt or her photo. Now every thought was deliberate, almost surgical. I printed the motel receipt first, the edges crisp and clean, then the photo, the woman's smirk, Ethan's reflection, followed by a copy of one of his fake invoices from work. Each one laid out on the table like evidence at a trial. My trial. I didn't need a courtroom. I had our dining room, the same place where he'd smiled through so many lies. As I set the table for dinner, I slipped the papers neatly under his plate, aligning them perfectly with the silverware. I lit 2 candles, a small touch of irony. The flicker of their light made the white paper glow faintly beneath the porcelain. Everything looked normal, almost beautiful. That's what betrayal does best. It hides inside beauty. I poured wine, adjusted my hair, and waited. When I heard the door open, my heart didn't race this time. I'd trained it not to. "Smells amazing in here. What's for—" he started, stopping mid-sentence as his eyes landed on the papers. His expression shifted instantly, confusion, then dread. "What's this?" he asked. I took a slow sip of wine, meeting his eyes. "Dinner," I said softly, served with the truth. For a moment, he didn't move. He just stood there, papers half lifted, his lips parting like words were trapped behind them. Laura, it's not what you think, he stammered, his voice cracking just slightly. I almost laughed. Almost. Really, I said, keeping my tone even, almost polite. Because it looks exactly like what I think. Room 204, 3 nights ago, the night you said you were saving the company. His eyes darted between the receipt and me, searching for an angle, a way out. He tried to reach for the papers, but I pulled them back, slow and deliberate. You've already explained, Ethan, I said quietly. You told me you were at work. I just didn't realize what kind of work you meant. His face drained of color. For a second, I saw the man I used to love, or thought I did, standing there, stripped of all his charm. And maybe that's when it hit him that I wasn't going to yell or cry or plead. I wasn't going to play the part he'd written for me. He stepped forward, voice trembling now. Please, let me explain. But I shook my head, calm as glass. No, Ethan. You've spent enough nights explaining things to other people. Tonight, you listen. My voice was soft, but final. He froze, eyes wide, realizing that the woman standing before him wasn't his forgiving wife anymore. She was his consequence. He stood there, breathing heavily, like he was trying to find the right version of the truth to feed me. It was just one time, he said finally, his voice small, desperate. It didn't mean anything. I tilted my head, studying him like a stranger who'd wandered into my home by mistake. One time, I repeated. You paid in cash, Ethan. Signed your own name. That's not an accident. That's comfort. You've done this before. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. For the first time, he looked afraid of me. I gathered the papers from the table and stacked them neatly, the way I used to fold his shirts. Do you know what hurts most? I asked, my tone steady, almost reflective. Not the cheating, not even the lying. It's realizing how easily you slept next to me afterward, how you looked me in the eyes and told me I was your home. The silence between us was deafening. The candles flickered, their wax dripping like slow tears. He took a hesitant step closer. Laura, please. I looked up at him and smiled, not warmly, but with clarity. You should save that tone for your next story, I said, my voice a whisper that cut sharper than any scream. Then I turned away, taking my wine glass with me. Behind me, I could hear the sound of him sitting down, broken, confused. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The trap had already closed. By the next morning, my anger had cooled into something sharper. Focus. Shouting would have been too easy, too forgettable. I wanted something that would last, something that would make him feel the weight of his choices every time someone said his name. So when he mentioned the small business dinner he was hosting that weekend, clients, investors, the usual, I smiled and said, Of course, honey, I'll make sure everything's perfect. And I meant it. Just not the way he thought. That Saturday evening, the house looked beautiful. Candles lit, table set, music low. Ethan was buzzing with nerves, pacing in the kitchen while I poured wine and greeted guests with the kind of warmth that hides storms. They all adored him, of course. Ethan Harris, always the charmer, one woman said, laughing. I smiled politely, thinking how charm and deceit often wear the same suit. He moved around the room so easily, completely unaware that his perfect night was about to unravel. When everyone sat down to eat, I excused myself to grab more wine. That's when I did it, quietly, effortlessly. I pinned the motel receipt to the fridge, tucked just behind the wine rack where someone curious might notice. And then I waited, heart steady, glass in hand. Revenge didn't need noise. It just needed the right timing and the right audience. It didn't take long. Maybe 20 minutes into dinner, laughter filled the room, silverware clinking against plates, when I heard it. The voice that would break him. Ethan, one of his clients said, half laughing, half curious. Didn't know you were staying at the Silver Moon Motel. Nice place? The table went quiet, just like that. I watched Ethan's fork stop midair, his smile freezing before it collapsed completely. He turned his head toward the fridge, and there it was. The receipt, glowing softly in the light like a ghost that refused to stay buried. "Oh," I said, feigning confusion as I turned to look. "That? I must have mixed it up with the grocery receipts?" My voice was gentle, casual, almost teasing. Then I looked straight at him. "You were at the motel, weren't you, Ethan?" The words landed like a match on gasoline. A few guests glanced at each other, whispering, pretending not to stare. One of them coughed to break the silence, but it was too late. His reputation was already bleeding out right there on my dining table. Ethan mumbled something about a client meeting, but no one bought it. His voice shook. His face turned crimson. I sipped my wine slowly, the taste sweeter than ever. For the first time, I felt calm. Not the fragile calm that hides pain, but the kind that comes from justice. Watching him crumble in front of the people he'd worked so hard to impress wasn't just revenge. It was closure, elegantly served. Ethan tried to recover, to laugh it off, but the air in the room had shifted. You could feel it, that cold stiffness when people realize they're sitting in the middle of a scandal. His smile trembled as he muttered excuses no one believed. "Must be a mistake," he said, his voice too thin, too hollow. No one replied. They just stared. And I, standing by the counter with my glass of wine, watched his perfect world unravel piece by piece, all without raising my voice. I caught one of the guests watching me, sympathy flickering in her eyes. I gave her a small, polite smile, the kind that says, "I'm fine, I already knew." Then I turned away, rinsing a plate, letting the clatter of dishes fill the silence Ethan couldn't escape. He looked smaller then, like a man shrinking under the weight of his own lies. I didn't need to say another word. The truth had already spoken for me. By the time the guests left, he couldn't look at me. He didn't have to. I'd already said everything I needed to without saying a thing. That night, as I blew out the candles, the scent of smoke lingered in the air. Sharp, final, cleansing. Some fires don't burn to destroy. They burn to purify. Months later, the house feels different. Quieter, but not lonely. My mornings belong to me again. No more waiting for footsteps on the stairs. No more pretending not to know. The divorce went through smoothly. Ethan didn't fight much. Maybe shame does that to people. It softens them, makes them small. I watched him leave the courthouse with a look I couldn't quite name. Not anger, not sadness. Just the realization that he'd finally met the version of me he never believed existed. With the settlement money, I started over. A consulting firm, small, but growing fast. I work with women who've been blindsided like I was, helping them trace hidden assets, follow paper trails, uncover the quiet betrayals buried in numbers. It feels poetic, in a way. The same skills I once used to keep a house running are now tools of independence. Every invoice, every account I help them find feels like another tiny piece of justice. Sometimes, when my new assistant asks why I chose this path, I smile. I think of that morning, the wallet, the sunlight, the sound of paper unfolding like a confession. "A receipt," I tell her. Just one piece of paper, but it bought me my freedom. Every now and then, I catch glimpses of my old life. A restaurant we used to visit, a song that once played in our kitchen. For a second, it tugs at me, that echo of what I thought was happiness. But then I remember the truth. Peace built on lies isn't peace at all. It's a performance, and I'd been acting for far too long. Now my peace feels earned. It's quiet, honest, sometimes lonely, but it's mine. And I'll take that over illusion any day. Ethan tried to reach out once, months after everything settled. A short email, full of nostalgia, half apology, half regret. I didn't respond. There's nothing left to say to someone who mistook forgiveness for weakness. I don't hate him anymore. Hate ties you to the past. I've let that rope go. What's left is distance, wide, calm, unshakable. I've learned that freedom doesn't always come in grand gestures or dramatic escapes. Sometimes it's a single decision, quiet, steady, final. Like closing a book you've already read too many times and placing it back on the shelf knowing you'll never open it again. These days, my life runs on new rhythms: early walks, quiet breakfasts, late nights spent writing proposals instead of waiting for someone to come home. The silence that once felt heavy now feels sacred. I've learned to enjoy it, to fill it with things that are mine alone. I'm not the woman who found a receipt and trembled anymore. I'm the woman who followed it, straight into her own liberation. Sometimes I still think about that piece of paper, how something so small, so ordinary, could hold the power to change everything. He paid cash that night, to keep things hidden, to make them disappear. But that single choice gave me all the proof I needed to stop disappearing myself. It's funny how life balances things when you least expect it. Now, when I look back, I don't see betrayal anymore. I see revelation. He spent money to buy a night of lies, and I made him spend everything to buy back his silence. That's the price of deceit. And for me, it was the down payment on freedom.